All right, now we'll be going in depth on the Arts Learning Grant for the Statewide Community Regrant Program. If you're coming to this video first, please go back to the first video to get information that relates to the Arts Learning Grant. There is information that applies to the program as a whole that's really important that you are made aware of. The Arts Learning Grant supports in-depth arts education projects to participants of all ages, led by nonprofit organizations, cultural groups, or individual teaching artists. They can take place either in school or out of school. We'll talk about the key differences in a moment. And they're meant to build capacity of local artists and organizations while providing students and/or community members with high-quality artistic learning experiences. The funding amount, as we say in the previous video, is $2,500 or $5,000. And we're going to go into all the details of this summary in the coming slides. And first, I'll give a couple examples of successful Arts Learning Grant projects. So ENTA, or Education Network for Teaching Artists, has done a great series of projects at the Rhinebeck High School, where they work with various classrooms to do bring in teaching artists and do an arts project. And they've been really successful in going into non-arts classrooms and bringing arts education into those other subjects and doing cross-curriculum teaching. A great example of a previous funded project is Susan Griss, who did a dance and movement workshop at Woodland Pond, which is a senior living facility. This is a great workshop, and this is one that would qualify for an out-of-school project. And it was a series of workshops that the teaching artists led at Woodland Pond, that the same group met over several sessions. And it was only available to residents of that senior living facility. The YMCA Starfish Summer Camp has done a great program where they work with specific students that are part of their summer program and provide arts educational programs to them. Specifically, this one year that the image is from was related to environmentalism and recycling, reusing, and being aware of their local environment. So it was a great project that is arts focused, but has other thematic content, environmentalism that they're addressing through arts education, but the primary focus is on them retaining arts skills. So some overall goals for the Arts Learning Grant: to support nonprofit organizations, cultural groups, and individual artists in providing in-depth arts education projects to participants of all ages, build capacity of local artists and nonprofit arts organizations while providing K-12 public school students and community members with high-quality artistic learning experiences, and support marginalized teaching artists and students through in-depth hands-on arts education. And so these are the overall goals that Arts Mid-Hudson is trying to achieve. No one project will meet all of these goals. It's really when the panel looks at everything that's been submitted, they're hoping that they're going to fund a group of projects that overall get us close to reaching our overall goals or help us to meet our goals. Now I'm going to go over what's eligible for the Arts Learning Grant category. So projects must provide sequential skills-based study that incorporates one or more art forms and includes a minimum of 3 hands-on learning sessions between the same instructor and group of students. Hands-on participatory creation or learning opportunities must be provided in one or more art forms that may culminate in an exhibition, production, or demonstration. So I'll stop here and give a couple additional notes. So this is focused on teaching art skills. So as I stated before, they might be exploring a specific theme, but the main focus should be on teaching art skills to the students that develop over the course of at least 3 sessions. And that's why it's important that it's the same instructor and the same group of students all moving through those 3 sessions together. And they're not one-offs. They're building on that art skill over a series of sessions. They may culminate in an exhibition or a final demonstration or production that maybe the students' families can attend or community members can attend. That is not required, but I will note that it is something that panelists are often very pleased to see. And I have noticed panelists make comments like, I wish they had done a final culminating presentation. It's not required, but I just think it's worth noting here. You'll hear me talk about in the Q&A sessions, and if we do one-on-one technical assistance, there's all this stuff that I've talked about in this info session that's really like eligibility, what's, talking about what's eligible. But then there's a whole other conversation of what's competitive for the program. And I would say having some way to share the work that the students created, while not required, is a really nice bonus if it's feasible for what you're doing. Then our next point here, stated learning goals, methodologies, and outcomes, and a means for evaluation. So when you're submitting your application, this should be included in what you're describing, very clear goals for what what you hope the students will learn or achieve, and how they'll be, what would be success, what are you hoping they'll take away and learn from being a part of the sessions. Programs may be in person, virtual, or a hybrid of the two. Arts Learning Grants projects must identify an existing group of learners who will participate, be it in-school students or youth and or adult learners. So if you're going, the in-school route, then it would be a specific grade or a specific class. If it's for an out-of-school project, then you might say this is for elementary school students who are part of this Girl Scout troop, or you might say this is for adult learners who are part of this that reside in the senior living facility. Arts Learning Grant funded programs serve the closed group of learners identified in the application and are not open to participation to the general public. So there really should be nothing in the application talking about marketing this or how you're going to get participants, because you should already have that group identified when you're applying, and there will be a question that asks you to say who they are. So for in-school projects, these projects must take place during the school day and in a K through 12 public school setting. And I'll say pre-K, if they have a pre-K public program, that's eligible as well. Private, parochial, and home schools are not eligible to serve as partner schools. I'll say that again since I flipped up a little bit. Private, parochial, and home schools are not eligible to serve as partner schools. Must be a public K through 12 or pre-K program. Arts Learning Funds must not replace or appear to replace the role of certified arts teachers in the school. So this project should not be, it would not be competitive to talk about how this, that this is like a supplement or replacement for if the school does not have adequate arts education. This should really be something that's a bonus that's being offered to the school or the students. Students may not be taken out of regular classes to participate or self-select for participation in the program. So that means it should be built into their school day. And that's usually done in coordination with a teacher or with administration, where it's not like, they go to their regular class and the teacher, is not teaching that day, the teaching artist, or they're going to be helping the teaching artist who's going to lead the sessions. And not self-selected. So again, it's a group, you're going to work with this class or this grade, whatever it might be. It's not like we're going to go in during lunch and say, hey, who wants to go do this workshop instead of going to lunch today, right? It should be built into the school day. So some finer points for after-school and community-based learning. Participants in these projects must be a part of an existing group, such as a club at a library, a social service organization participants, educational program participants, or senior center participants. It's just some examples. They should already be identified. Projects may take place in a setting appropriate for the project. So that might be at the site where the group meets or at a site that has the appropriate facilities. It should be a public location, something that's accessible to the public. So not a private home. Participants can be part of a specific age group or of any age, so depending on what's appropriate for the project. Allowable expenses, so fees to the teaching artist. These are the expenses that we are most interested in paying and are eligible for the Arts Learning Grant. So again, teaching artist fees and direct administrative expenses and or planning and preparation expenses for the proposed events or sessions. Supplies and materials needed to execute the proposed project, and efforts to increase accessibility to arts education programming. So if that, you know, you're working with a group and you know that you're going to need some additional accommodation services for those in the group, you might be paying, for example, a translator to work with you during the sessions. We funded things like that in the past. Some expenses that are not eligible for the Arts Learning Grant, it should not appear as a line item on your budget that you are asking Arts Mid-Hudson funds to pay for. So the purchase of permanent equipment items are not eligible. Creation of textbooks is not eligible. You might prepare classroom materials, but this is not appropriate for like launching a new textbook or something. We've gotten inquiries like that in the past. We cannot pay fees to board members of the nonprofit or nonprofit fiscal sponsor that is applying. And please see the guidelines for a complete list of ineligible expenses for the Arts Learning Grant. A note on inclusion. Arts Learning Grant funded projects are not open to the general public. It's our only category where it's not open to the general public. But we encourage teaching artists and arts education programs to seek input from the community they are working with to determine inclusion and accessibility needs and ensure the relevancy and sensitivity of their teaching, especially when working with marginalized populations. So any efforts that you're undertaking to ensure inclusion, anything that you really want to highlight about the teaching artists that are working and their experience, that would be very noteworthy to include in the application, or make sure it's included on the resume or bio that you're providing for the teaching artists on the application. And now I'm going to talk about the ways that you would apply to the Arts Learning Grant. There are a few different options depending on whether you're applying for in school or out of school. So first, we'll talk about applying directly as a nonprofit. So if you're applying as a nonprofit, it must be a nonprofit or 501c3 organization with a primary address in Dutchess, Orange, or Ulster counties in New York State, must have a board of directors and a non-discrimination policy in place, must be in adherence of the Nonprofit Revitalization Act of 2013. If you need more information about this, a really great resource is the New York State Council on Nonprofits, or NICON. They have a ton of great resources on nonprofit best practices, and specifically within New York State. They also offer membership where you can get one-on-one support and a lot of really great services from them. Libraries, private universities, government entities, and tribal organizations are considered as having nonprofit status and are eligible to apply. That being said, any of these groups, nonprofit, library, tribal organization, there is likely to be some kind of teaching artist involved who is really leading the sessions and is getting paid. Who is ineligible? Public school districts, public universities, New York State agencies and departments, including SUNY schools, and county-level government agencies and departments. Non-incorporated chapters of organizations whose parent organization is not located in Dutchess, Orange, or Ulster County. If you have a question about this, please let me know. But if you are a chapter of a larger nonprofit that's incorporated like in another state, for example, and you all meet somewhere but do not have a permanent primary address, then you would not be eligible to apply under that nonprofit, and you would need to seek a different way to apply. Arts Mid-Hudson and our staff and board members are not eligible to apply for the Arts Learning Grant. And one thing I'll add here that's ineligible are for-profit organizations and organizations that are incorporated as an LLC are not eligible to apply. If you apply directly to New York State Council on the Arts or NYSCA, you are ineligible for the Statewide Community Regrants Program and the Arts Learning Grant. And that's if you applied for funding for fiscal year 2024. If you applied for fiscal year 2024, you would already know that you did, and you would know whether or not you received the grant at this point. NYSCA, if you apply directly to NYSCA and want to serve, or I should take a step back. If you're applying for a program and you want to use a venue that applied directly to NYSCA, please double check our guidelines to make sure if the eligibility of that. NYSCA applicants may not benefit financially from Arts Learning Grant funded projects, but there are a couple of exceptions if you just need to like pay the at-cost expenses. So just please look at our guidelines for a very detailed description of how to work with organizations as venues that have applied to NISCA. And if an organization applied directly to NISCA, they may not serve as a fiscal sponsor for an arts learning grant. And they may also, just as a note, you may not serve as a fiscal sponsor or a partner organization for the community arts grant. Attachments for nonprofits applying for the arts learning grant: a staff list, including whether the individuals are paid staff or volunteers; board list, including names and board details. If you're a town or city applying, you do not need to include a board list. A financial statement showing both income and expenses for the applicant's most recent fiscal year. Again, towns and cities do not need to submit that. And you'll see more information about that in the guidelines and on the application itself when you get to those attachment areas. Proof of nonprofit status: we can accept a few different documents, so please take a look at the guidelines to identify which one is your proof of nonprofit status and should be submitted. And if you are a nonprofit applying for an in-school project, please get a letter of commitment from the school that you are working with. You can see complete details about this in the Arts Learning Grant Guidelines, but it should be a letter from the principal of the school written on the school's letterhead, and you'll just attach that to the application. Nonprofits who are applying directly to this category or any of the community arts grant category can also serve as a fiscal sponsor for unlimited additional projects. So if you are applying directly and someone has asked you to be a fiscal sponsor, you are totally eligible to and able to do both. And in fact, sometimes we get questions about if that will work against the nonprofit who's applying directly. I would say more often than not, it actually is something that the panel recognizes as a nice gesture that the nonprofit is serving as a fiscal sponsor, so someone else can apply as well. Okay, now I'll go over applying as an individual or an unincorporated group. So individual applicants and unincorporated groups are encouraged to apply to this grant opportunity. And if you're applying as an individual, you must be at least 18 years of age at the time of submission and may not be enrolled in a full-time degree program. Unincorporated groups, you'll see on the application, you're applying as an unincorporated group, but there is still a person who has to serve as the contact person for that unincorporated group so that you can apply. And they must meet that requirement, be at least 18 years of age, and may not be enrolled full-time in a degree program. Please know that when you're going this route, that individual applicant who's applying directly or the person who's applying directly on behalf of an unincorporated group is the legal applicant. They're signing the contract, they're ultimately responsible for the project, and the check will be made directly out to that individual. You must live in or have a legal address in Dutchess, Orange, or Ulster County, and must apply with a partner school for in-school projects or a nonprofit fiscal sponsor for after-school and community-based learning. If you're applying with a partner school for an in-school project, individual artist groups or collectives and unincorporated entities must partner with an eligible partner school for in-school projects. And when applying for an in-school project with a partner school, the individual applicant does not need a nonprofit to be their fiscal sponsor. You don't need a nonprofit to be involved at all. You're the direct applicant and you're partnering with the K-12 public school or pre-K program that is public. And also please note, the school is not the legal applicant. They cannot be the legal applicant, as we talked about before. We cannot send the check to the school. It has to be sent to the to the individual who's working with the school. What you'll need to attach: proof of residency. So applicants must provide proof of residency, which contains the individual's name and address. Documentation must be dated no earlier than 2023. And a letter of commitment signed by the principal of the school and on the school's letterhead. Fiscal sponsorship. So this really applies for after school or community-based learning. So individual artists, groups, or collectives and unincorporated entities must be fiscally sponsored by an eligible nonprofit organization in order to apply for an after-school or community-based learning project. In this situation, the fiscal sponsor is the legal applicant. So they will sign the contract with Arts Mid-Hudson. The check will be made to made from Arts Mid-Hudson to the nonprofit fiscal sponsor. has to take place in the county in which the fiscal sponsor is located, and they must be located in Dutchess, Orange, or Ulster County. If you're an individual artist and you really want to do an out-of-school project with a, say you're an artist that's located in Ulster County and you really want to do a project with a group that's located in Dutchess, then this is, they can either apply directly and hire you, or they can apply as your fiscal sponsor. And as long as you're located in our service area and they're located in the county in which the project is going to take place, then that would be eligible. The fiscal sponsor is not required to make a financial contribution to the project. Applicants may select this option if they do not wish for grant funds to be paid directly to them, or if you require greater administrative support from a nonprofit organization. If you are doing fiscal sponsor, just a checklist of what you'll need to attach. It's really the same as what you would attach if you were applying directly as a nonprofit. We'll need a staff list, board list, financial statement, and proof of nonprofit status, and a letter of agreement signed by the fiscal sponsor and the sponsored artist or incorporated group. You can find a template of this letter on our website with all of the other materials for this program. And you'll see that it's basically you fill in the blank, who are the key people involved, and then you lay out the terms of the project. And for example, how the funds will be expended. Will it be all in one lump sum to the teaching artist, or will it be a pay period over a period of time? Whatever it might be, you'll lay that out on this letter and attach it to your application. Okay, so submitting a grant proposal. All grant proposals must be submitted online by Thursday, February 15th, 2024 at 11:59 p.m., so right before it becomes the 16th. You can find a direct link to the application on our website, and I would encourage you, if you have questions about the budget, in the community arts grant video, I pulled up that application and went over the budget a bit, and it's really the same principles apply when looking at the arts learning grant budget. So you can take a look at that video. When you go to that video, just look for the timestamp in the description to go to the budget. And if you have any additional questions about the arts learning grant application or the budget, which is embedded into the application, then please attend one of our Q&A sessions and we'll pull it up and take a look at it together. If you require assistance in completing the online submission form, please contact us in advance of the deadline. Additional attachments, so you'll be asked to provide the teaching artist resume or bio, work samples, which are optional but highly recommended. You can upload up to 10 files. And I recommend here, get questions about this a lot for Arts Learning Grant. You can provide examples of the work has been produced as a result of the teaching artist's previous workshops or teaching. So student work, you might provide some artwork created by the teaching artist, or if this is a reoccurring program, you can provide some documentation of previous years. Just you'll see on the application, there's a notes section below the work samples where you can provide any context that's needed. For this situation in particular, note whether it's the teaching artist work, student work, documentation from a previous year, whatever it might be. And then if you have any additional documents like letters of support, press articles, marketing samples, video samples of teaching, I know some teaching artists have that, you're welcome to upload up to 3 additional files on the application. Some tips for the budget, which you'll see is embedded on the application form itself. I really recommend working on the narrative and the budget together and checking for consistency throughout. If anything, I also recommend just working on the budget first. It provides a really good roadmap for the writing of the narrative and really will enable you to focus your writing on what you are asking for funds for, which is really the most important thing and most important part of the grant application. So I strongly recommend, do the budget and then have that guide your writing. There's an explanation column on the budget table. This is really critical because this is how you explain how you got to whatever number you're putting on that line item. So please do not skip it or leave it blank. Describe what that number means, and you'll see a good example of this in the Community Arts Grant video budget section. And another good thing I'm happy to go over again at a Q&A session. Check the guidelines for allowable and ineligible expenses. That's a really good thing to double check before you submit your, as you're working on your application and once you've completed your budget, make sure that there's nothing on the budget that we've explicitly stated is a non-fundable expense. A helpful formula is expenses minus projected income equals grant request amount. So if you have, $10,000 in expenses and you're asking us for $5,000, you'll see that there's a place on the budget to talk about that projected additional income and the gap between your total expenses and the amount you're requesting from us. Another good thing that we would be happy to go over in a TA call if you have questions about how to structure all those questions. And at any point, please ask us to review a draft of your budget. We can review drafts of budgets really quickly to let you know if it makes sense to us and is will be easily understood by the panel. The review criteria for the Arts Learning Grant, and then we'll give our final tips and wrap this up. So our review criteria are artistic merit, project feasibility, and impact of the project. Please see the guidelines for Arts Learning Grant for more detailed information about these 3 review criteria. But I'll give a little bit of extra information now. Artistic merit relating to the quality of the teaching artist's previous work and track record, the skills to be taught to the students and the stated learning outcomes, methodologies, and means for evaluation. I think all of that really plays into presenting a strong artistic merit, not just of what the students will produce, but the skills that they'll pick up by participating. Project feasibility, does the timeline make sense? Does the budget make sense? Does the teaching artist have a resume or bio that backs up what they're going to be teaching? And overall, does this project seem likely and feasible to occur as described in the proposal? Impact of the project. So does this, will this likely have a strong impact on the teaching artist, on any organizations involved? Will this perhaps be providing an opportunity for a school that has limited arts educational opportunities to expand their arts educational opportunities for students and maybe get a new, foster a new interest in the school? So those are things to think about when you're looking at who you want to partner with or what group you want to partner with. What's the potential for impact? Identify what the potential for impact is and highlight that in the application. And then for previously funded projects, evidence of the project's growth. This is not a separate, a scored review criteria, but it is something that the panel will consider. I think it most likely plays into feasibility and impact, just showing that the project is growing and that you're expanding from year to year in some way. Right, so before we wrap up, just some recommended first steps if you're planning to apply to the Arts Learning Grant. If you need a fiscal sponsor or partner school, this is something that you should jump on as soon as possible. And if you would like to brainstorm this, please make an appointment with us. Review the online application form and guidelines, get a sense of what you're going to be asked to submit. I recommend looking at those right away. Don't save, if you're going to look at the guidelines, you might as well also look at the application so you have the full scope of what you're going to be asked to do. Complete the project eligibility form so you can get some feedback about your proposed project, and organize digital copies of required attachments so you're not scrambling at the last minute to gather those documents or convert them to PDF and make sure that Submittable accepts them as they are. And at any time, please make an appointment with Arts Mid-Hudson. Again, you can email grants@artsmidhudson.org. All of the contact information is in the description below of this video. And thank you so much for your time. If you have any other questions relating to the Arts Learning Grant, don't hesitate to reach out to us.